So I have my little antlion here, and he's a little monster that we made for a game a while back. You can see if I click on him, it will get this white box around him. That means he's the selected one. What you might want to get in the habit of doing, actually let me set this up how you're used to seeing it. This would be a perspective view, top. This would be the front and left. Okay, you can see here my viewport controls are set correctly. So top, front, left, perspective. But my little bug is made sideways. So actually his front is his side. That's fairly normal. It just has to do with which direction your game engine needs your characters to be facing. So don't worry about it. Just go visually by what you're seeing and don't worry too much about the viewport name at this point. Now, one thing we can do is right-click on a viewport name and say Edged Faces. And what that's going to do is show us the polygon structure, that's this mesh that we're seeing here, along with the setting underneath, which is the texture and the mesh itself. You can see that if I set that in all these, that now I can really see how this creature is made. You can see that there's a mesh structure there, and he's kind of like he's made up of a whole bunch of like chicken wire or something. And that's how models are mostly made. I'm going to zoom in here, and you can see that how the mesh itself contours around those lines, and that's how models are made. And we're going to be doing that real soon here in our tutorials. We'll zoom back out here. Now, when we're dealing with these models, again, just as a reminder, because this is one of the biggest mistakes you can do, is don't use the rotate tool to look at your object. See how all views are changing now and it's going to be all screwed up? See how he's all messed up now? Hit undo. Zoom extends all. What you want to do is use the rotate tool. Again, I think the one with the yellow center is the best one. See how he's only moving in one view because my viewpoint is changing, not the model. That's really important. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to center things and get things straight the way you want it. So if you're still having trouble with all these different viewports looking like everything's a big jumble and it's not lined up right, that's because you're using this tool to rotate your objects, not this tool. Okay, or to rotate your viewports, I'm sorry. This tool rotates the viewports, this tool rotates the objects. Alright, one thing that we'll cover is if I use my select tool and right-click on my object, I get what's called a quad menu. The quad menu, I'm going to right-click over here just because it's easier in the viewport to see this one. The quad menu pops up and it's kind of like a quick selection of all the things you can do to that model at the time you click on it. So I haven't done a whole lot to this model, so I don't get a whole lot of options. But one thing you will see here is the move, rotate, and scale. Plus there's select, although he's probably already selected. There's a clone tool here, which we'll talk about. And I think that's all we're going to go over in this tutorial. Yeah, that's the only thing we're going to cover in this tutorial. Now, there are some little boxes next to this. You'll see rotate. If I click this little box, it'll give me the type in for this. So if I want my little bug to rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis, I can click that. And again, if I wanted to rotate, say, 45 degrees on the y-axis, I can type in 45 and hit enter, and you'll see that he'll rotate 45 degrees on that axis. So if you need things to move exactly in a certain way, you can certainly type it in here. This little section we just popped up is also the same as this section down here, and so if I type in 0, we'll close this, you can see I can go down here and type in the same settings, hit enter, and he'll jump around and rotate that way too. So for instance, if we wanted our little bug here to be forward facing in our front view, I type in 90 degrees on the Z-axis, hit Zoom Extents All, and now the front view is the front, the left view is the left, the top view is the top, and the perspective view is okay. Whoops, except I just did what I told you not to do, and I used that tool instead of that one. Okay, so don't forget these down here. Also, if you want to center your object, this black line right here is the very center of your viewport, so it's a 0, 0, 0 coordinate. And you can see if I use my Move tool, or I right-click and say Move with the little buttons, I can just zero all of these out, and he will go to the very center of the universe, and you can see, well, he would center, except that his pivot isn't centered. Here, we'll scoot him over. I picked an object without a centered pivot as my example. So now he's centered. We cheated. Anyways, we'll do that with a box here in a second. So as far as your objects go, just remember, don't use this tool to rotate the object or to rotate the view. Use this tool to rotate the view. And real quick, I'm going to reset this scene and go to box. I'm going to make a box that's clearly off-center. You can see this black line here. It's off-center in all viewports. If I click on my box, go to maximize all views, and if I zero out these views down here, it will center the box. I go to Zoom Extents All, and you can see that my box is now centered on that grid. And that's based off the pivot point, which we're going to be talking about here real soon in another tutorial.